You ever have one of those days?
One of what days?
Those days where you can't seem to get it together.
No, not really. I power through every day like a boss.
When the smallest task hits you like a 400-pound charging defensive lineman?
Yeah, no, I eat days like that for breakfast, but I also eat almonds.
Almonds?
Yeah, tiny little football-shaped power nuts with 6 grams of energy-giving protein.
Can I have a handful?
Fine. California almonds. Own your everyday, every day.
Are you hiring? With Indeed, you can post a job in minutes, set up screener questions, then zero in on your short list of qualified candidates using an online dashboard. Get started today at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast.
All right, people, listen up. We have a big favor to ask, and we promise it won't take up too much of your time. You know our show is supported by some fantastic sponsors, right? Well, we'd love to hear your feedback. Head to podcast.study and fill out a short, anonymous survey. That's it. We swear. Again, that's podcast.study.
Well, hope your Tuesday morning is off to a good start. Glad you're with us. Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN News. We are presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Mike Golic, Trey Wingo here. Mike, we have a lot to talk about, yes, obviously, in the Monday night double dip and everything that's going on and some of the decisions that were made and weren't made. But we do have to take all of that into context, Mike. Today is a very solemn and special day in the history of this country, and it is 17 years after September 11th, 2001. And you and I both were working on that day, and then things changed dramatically.
Really amazing. Greeny and I, we were doing the show, and actually Digger Phelps was on the show with us. He was a guest at that time, and we saw it all obviously happening, and we continued to do the show. And the interesting was the next day, we just thought ABC News was going to take over, and they asked us, just do the show. But don't worry about it being sports, so just do the show as two human beings who just went through what the country went through. And it was really an incredible show. I mean, just mind-numbing for our whole body-numbing, just what we went through and at that time. And we will never forget that, and I know you went on the air that day as well. Yeah,
I was driving into work when the last plane crashed into the Pentagon, and I remember driving into work that day thinking, what am I going to talk about today that matters of any significance? I was scheduled to do the 6 o'clock Sports Center that day, and the debate for most of that morning is, what are we going to do? And eventually we decided to go on the air, and Bob Lee and I went on at 6, and we were going to just do an hour, and there was a presidential statement and all that kind of things. We ended up staying on, I think, for 3 or 4 hours just to chronicle what had happened and how it related to sports. And there was a real debate about, should we just cede the airtime to ABC so they can get this out and all that kind of stuff. And I'll give Bob Lee all the credit in the world for this, because I was of the opinion, look, this is a different day. Let's just let ABC News handle this. And he said, you know what? We are, for lack of a better term at that time, the television show of record of sports in that day. We should go on the air just to chronicle what happened, and we did. And I think he helped us all to make the right call on that day.
Plus, there's no book on how do you handle this situation. We just handled it the best we could, and the horrible time, obviously, and that's why we'll never forget. And but yeah, it was. I remember that show, unfortunately, like it was yesterday. Just all of us, just like what the hell just happened?
If nothing else, it proved the resiliency of this nation. We've come back to be where we are, and again, there will be a moment of silence a little later on in this hour, and we will honor that, of course.
Absolutely.
17 years ago, never forget what happened in New York City and in Washington and in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. All right, lots to get to in what's going on in the world of sports. As we always do, let's start the hour with what's trending, and boy, it could have been trending really poorly for Sam Darnold after that first throw, but he rebounded nicely, Mike. His first throw, much like Jameis Winston his rookie year, and Brett Favre in his rookie year, although not the first game and the first pass of the first game, but his first pass was also a pick six. And after that, Sam Darnold and the Jets really turned it around.
I'd say he settled down pretty well.
Yes, he did.
Going for 6 may have been one of the best things. He didn't have a lot of time to think about it.
Yep.
He went to the sideline. Josh McCown, to his credit, you saw Josh McCown on the sideline. He and Sam were together with the O coordinator, and Josh McCown was vehemently, you could tell he was getting animated, saying, do not change a thing. Continue calling what you're calling. Don't let this think it affected him. Let him go do his thing. And certainly Sam Darnold did his thing after that. Had a heck of a day. The running attack was there as well. That certainly helped you. The defense was there. The special team, they scored every which way imaginable in this one, in a game where the first drive in the second half by Detroit, taking the kickoff in the second half, went down and scored. This was 17-17 game.
Yep.
And then after that, it was passing touchdown, defensive touchdown, special team touchdown, field goal, and running touchdown. It was just like, wow, they just piled it on there.
They absolutely did. And again, understand who Sam Darnold is. 21 years old, 97 days. As far back as we can go with any semblance of accuracy, and that goes back to the 1950 season, he's the youngest quarterback ever to start a National Football League game. And to be able at that tender age, Mike, to process what he did on the first throw and be like, whatever, I can be better than that. That is really impressive.
Yeah.
It is really impressive.
Listen, ends up just as that one interception goes 16 of 21. So he showed poise. We saw that right from the beginning. And, oh, by the way, he's going to throw more interceptions this year. He's not going to end the season with just one.
Oh, they'll take that, though.
Like anything else, it's how you come back from that. And he did get help from the rest of the offense with the running game. He got help from the defense as well. This was a great team win for the Jets, something that Jet fans haven't been able to say for a while from all aspects of the team. So let's see where that goes in the first division game when the Miami Dolphins come to visit this weekend.
And I'm glad you brought up Josh McCown, because people are like, well, why do you keep Josh McCown instead of Teddy Bridgewater?
For that reason right there.
That's why. He is so great in the locker room, and he wanted to make sure, run the same game plan with Sam. Run the same game plan. But I'm glad you brought up the rest of the team. The defense looked great. Mm-hmm. They got huge special teams plays. Look, it's week one, and Jets fans aren't used to this feeling. It's called optimism. Yeah. They might be feeling really off kilter right now, but after week one, you should be feeling pretty optimistic. Again, it only matters until you translate it into week two, but for Jets fans, feeling pretty good about themselves right now. And then, of course, the second Monday night game, the double dip, another fan base that should be feeling pretty good about themselves, the LA Rams. Boy, 2 games on the road, Mike, and both the road teams separate themselves from the home team in the second half. You talked about it, where they scored 31 unanswered by the Jets after the Lions had tied it up at 17. Well, how about the Rams going on the road in Oakland? The Black Hole had a fever pitch because of John Gruden's return, his debut the second time around, and they go out and outscore the Raiders 23-0 in the second half.
Raiders actually have a 13-10 lead at halftime, and this is both teams' second half possessions. Rams score on 4 or 5 possessions in the second half. Field goal, punt, touchdown, field goal, field goal. The Raiders 6 possessions in the second half. Punt, 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 interception, end of game.
Yeah.
Don't do anything. And you want to talk about little teaching moments and what Sean McVay is going to do with the Rams? He's going to look at that 4 or 5 where it was field goal, punt, touchdown, field goal, and say,
touchdowns.
Can't win with field goals.
Yep.
Got to score touchdowns. In this game, you got away with it, but he said there's going to be one where it catches up. That's the coaching moments, even in a win, that you coach and you say, we can't survive on this.
Yeah.
We can't survive on all these field goals. You got to put it in the end zone.
And again, just put some sort of perspective on what week one means. It doesn't mean everything, but in the current playoff format, which goes back to 1990 when 12 teams get in, 68% of playoff teams won their first game. Mm-hmm. Now, you can go back to just last year and say, well, wait a minute. The Saints went 0-2 and they went on to win the division and win a playoff game. So that is there as well. But for the most part, it really helps to get off to a good start in the NFL. And the Rams are certainly off to that. The Raiders and the Lions after Monday night, certainly not. And we'll get into a lot more of college NFL a little bit later, but it's time to talk a little college football. And with that, we are delighted to be joined by Paul Finebaum from the SEC Network and the Paul Finebaum Show. He joins us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. And Paul, before we do a deep dive into college, you obviously covered Sam Darnold last year in his final year at USC. His nickname was the DNA. Did the way he shaked off a bad start against the Lions surprise you at all, considering what you saw from him in college?
Not completely. I felt last year, as so many others did, Trey, that he was pressing too hard. I mean, I think he had the weight of the Heisman and being on the cover of every magazine and being in the expectations of being the first pick, and he struggled with that. And I think you saw that for a second last night. But man, when he shook the cobwebs off, was he money?
Paul, more surprising to you in college football this weekend, Clemson in a close game with Texas A&M, who was looking to get the 2-point conversion to tie it and possibly send to overtime, or Georgia just absolutely dismantling South Carolina?
I was more surprised by Georgia because I thought South Carolina was at least up to the challenge of making that into a really interesting game where Jimbo Fisher in his first year versus Will Muschamp in his third was certainly way behind. I think what I misread was how good Georgia was going to be. I mean, Mike, you just kept thinking losing Roquan Smith, losing all the running backs, losing so many senior or junior or senior players that they might struggle a little bit early on before they found their rhythm. But, I mean, there were times in that game when they looked unbeatable, and I mean anyone in the sport of college football. Clemson, I think, just got they let that game just drag on, and you always hear about home field advantage, and to a degree we overdo it. But in that environment, the later it went, the more suffocating it became for Clemson, and that vaunted defensive line, which we've all said would be maybe the best of all time, just could not quite make the plays when they had to. And listen, Clemson was pretty lucky to get out of there.
They absolutely were, but they got the win. And, Paul, with that in mind, as Paul Finebaum from the SEC Network and the Paul Finebaum Show joins us, if I said to you right now you could take a prop bet and it would be Alabama, Clemson, and Georgia in 3 of the top 4 spots in the college football playoff, would you take it?
Yeah, I would. And a couple of weeks ago, I probably would have hedged on Georgia because, I mean, don't laugh when I say this, but I thought they had a couple of tricky road games, South Carolina, Missouri in a couple of weeks, and later against Kentucky as well as Florida. I'm taking Florida off of that board. Kentucky looked really good, but I'm still not willing to make too much on that. So, yeah, I mean, they basically have to play Alabama in the SEC championship game, and I know we're skipping the season, which we always do, but if depending on how everything else goes, it's entirely possible that they both could get in again.
Talking to Paul Finebaum, Paul Finebaum Show on ESPN Radio and SEC Network 3 to 7 each day. Paul, as far as looking ahead to this week right now, we're going to look back some still with last week, but this week, Ohio State and TCU, this is the last suspension game for Urban Meyer, even though he's at practice. The only thing he's missing is the game. Do you see, but it's one of the ranked ones we have this week, Ohio State at 4, TCU at 15. Do you see TCU able to give him a game in this?
I think that TCU is good enough, but I really believe Urban being there all week is fairly important, Mike. I'll let you explain to the audience what preparation means, but it's pretty important. Game time decisions matter, and I think they lose a little bit. And if somehow TCU loses this, beats Ohio State, you can imagine Urban Meyer's stare at his boss, Gene Smith, and the president from a couple of weeks ago will become even more fierce and frigid. But I think they'll get past that. If you look at the slate of games this week, I really am intrigued by LSU and Auburn. Do you buy LSU after the win over Miami, or was Miami a paper tiger? I really think Auburn is a top 10 team. So, I mean, those are probably the 2 best games in the country, which will help shape whether Auburn's a legitimate challenger for Alabama. I don't think they are. And of course, LSU, which I suspect Auburn will survive at home. So this is not a great weekend in college football. I think you can figure that out already.
Paul Finebaum with us from the Paul Finebaum Show, the SEC Network, and all this talk about Alabama and Clemson.
The normal
Georgia.
Top teams.
Yeah, normal. This is all wonderful, but Paul, let's get to the most important thing in college football.
Leave it on the grass, man. Leave it on the grass.
Give it up for our guy, Herm Edwards, leaving it all on the grass, 2-0 out of the gate at Arizona State, in the top 25, a big win early in his career, taking down 15th-ranked Michigan State. What do you and the rest of college football make of what Herm has been able to do so far?
I think it's phenomenal, and it was so easy because I did it, criticize the hire, saying he just dug somebody up from the heap and propped him up and made him the coach. But Herm's specialty is motivation. In addition to he was a good coach, which we forgot about because he was probably a better commentator on ESPN. And I think that was a trap for Michigan State, which has a good team, but you should be smarter than playing late games in the Western time period. And that was I mean, you compare Herm to all the other big name coaches, which got more attention. Scott Frost, who who had his first game canceled, and then barely lost his opener, and then Chip Kelly, who got all of the attention. And listen, Chip Kelly has had going to Oklahoma is no shame. Losing to Cincinnati is shameful. Yeah. And Kevin Sumlin, who has looked probably as bad as anyone, especially when you juxtapose what he's done with an 0-2 start versus his successor, Jimbo Fisher.
Well, listen, I mean, how good do you think this Arizona State team can be? They've got a veteran quarterback. They've got a first round pick in their wide receiver in Kill Harry. Yeah. They've got a great cover corner. Chase Henry, I think, is his name. How good can they win the Pac-12 South?
They may be able to get to the championship game. It's not that great. I think who do they play coming up? Is it? I think is it SC? I can't remember.
San Diego State, and then Washington.
Then Washington,
which will be the big test.
Washington's the game I was thinking of. I don't think they can beat Washington right now. I was really impressed with Washington coming out of the Auburn game. I mean, they were within a sneeze of winning that game. But yeah, I think he won the game that he had to win to get the program off the ground. I mean, you see situations like Willie Taggart at Florida State, where an embarrassing first game and probably an even more embarrassing second game, having to come from behind to beat Samford, and suddenly fans just start saying we got the wrong coach. In Arizona State's case, had Herm lost the first couple of games, I think that you would have seen that narrative developing. But now there is reason to believe, and for good reason, because I think Herm has managed his team very, very well.
Completely agree, and you're right. Down in Arizona, Tucson, the Kevin Sumlin, wow, that has just been ugly right out of the gate. As far as the fun we've had with Nick Saban getting mad early in the season, so unfortunately we expect that every week, but we don't get it. And talking about his quarterbacks, how do you see this quarterback situation playing out? Do you see what's happening right now? Do you see that going through the entire season?
Well, here's what was going on Friday. There was a lot of speculation in Tuscaloosa that Jalen Hurts was not going to play against Arkansas State. In other words, he was going to pick and choose his games. By playing, the question now becomes, what signal did he send? Is he a team player, which he looks like, or is he just going to play in the first 4 games and then make a determination? I thought Jalen made a very smart decision, or someone close to him. His father was a coach, remember that. By playing in that game, he looked like he was all in. Had he held himself out, I mean, that's all we would be talking about right now, the new world of college football, where a player decides when he plays and when he doesn't because of this new 4-game redshirt rule. So I don't think that story is over yet, Mike. After 4 games, which will be this weekend against Ole Miss and Oxford, and then next weekend at home against Texas A&M. So it's not sure how much he will have to play. I would suspect this weekend he'll probably get a pretty good opportunity against an Ole Miss team whose defense I think was gashed badly. I think it was the other day, and I think in other words, the 4-game line of demarcation is where I'm going to start paying attention. Until then, it's pretty obvious that controversy has taken a breather.
It certainly has, as Tua seems well established as the guy going forward. Paul Finebaum is with us from the SEC Network and the Paul Finebaum Show. As we're on Alabama, you can make the seamless spin to his disciples and people that have moved on. We've all seen Bill Belichick in the NFL, and his coaching tree has struggled a little bit trying to do what Bill has done at the next level. What do you make of Kirby Smart as a Saban disciple and the things he's been able to do really quickly at Georgia?
Well, it's the same template. It starts with recruiting. It's just like in real estate, it's location, location, location. In college football, it's all about recruiting. And if you don't have a strong recruiting base, which he does, and if you don't go beyond the area, which he has done, you can't compete. And I think we saw that Saturday, Trey, with 2 Saban disciples, Will Muschamp and Kirby Smart, both from the same side of the ball. But Kirby Smart has been able to master the recruiting, and the stockpiling of talent down there is just enormous. One reason why Nick Saban made coaching changes in the offseason, by the way, that was after winning a national championship. Mm-hmm. I mean, how many coaches move coaches out after winning the title? And I suspect, and I was in College Station a week and a half ago, we are about to see the same situation with Jimbo Fisher. He is mastering that art at a time when Tom Herman at Texas has been underperforming. So that's really the key, in addition to having enormous talent as a head coach, and Kirby Smart and Jimbo Fisher are clearly right now the two best Saban disciples.
Paul, we can't let this go by without giving some love to Kentucky and what they did. 31 straight to Florida. They do it in the Swamp against a number 25 Florida team. So they get that monster win, so you can talk obviously about that. But can this Kentucky team do, I don't know, what was it, a lot was expected of this year. Does this catapult them somewhere possibly?
It does, because suddenly all they get, they have Georgia at home, and that's a critical point. They're a very physical team. I mean, they were just destroying Florida at the line of scrimmage, Mike, and it was no contest. And Mark Stoops is a name that primarily because of his brother, and he has just built this thing. It's been methodical. He nearly got fired 2 years ago. But the administration with new facilities has been all in, and his primary. It's interesting about Mark Stoops. Ohio is where he recruits. Very unusual for an SEC school, and he has done really well up there, picking off players that somehow miss going to Columbus. And he's got a good program. If he can he's beaten South Carolina 4 years in a row. Now he's got Florida off his back, and what it really means is that the Dan Mullen era has stalled, and I don't think Mullen will get a lot of criticism. They've had too many coaching changes in Gainesville to have sustainability, but it's going to take a long time. But I think it also shows what just an absolutely terrible job Jim McElwain did there.
Well, no question about that, and we'll see what happens with Kentucky and Florida going forward. Paul, we appreciate it. Thanks very much. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Paul.
Always a pleasure, guys. See you next week.
When it comes to hiring, you don't have time to waste. You need help getting to your short list of qualified candidates fast. That's why you need Indeed.com. Post a job in minutes, set up screener questions, then zero in on qualified candidates using an intuitive online dashboard. And when you need to hire fast, accelerate your results with sponsored jobs. New users can try for free at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms, conditions, and quality standards apply.
Remember when you couldn't order a ride at the press of a button? Or get online without hearing this? Or get Domino's delivered to over 150,000 unexpected outdoor locations? Wait, what? Introducing Domino's Hotspots. You can finally get pizza delivered right to the beach, the quad, or the dog park. Not at home? Not a problem. Find a Domino's hotspot near you and get 2 medium 2-topping pizzas delivered for $5.99 each. 2-item minimum. Handmade pan pizzas will be extra. Ask for this limited time offer. Prices, participation, delivery area, and charges may vary. Restrictions apply. Visit Domino's.com for details on Domino's hotspots.
Sometimes we get it right, Michael.
Yeah, and leave it to us to just boast about ourselves and take the shine off Tony.
Absolutely.
It's all us.
Sometimes we get it right. Golic and Wingo.
Tony did nothing but golf.
He did.
We put him on that team.
ESPN Radio and ESPN News presented by Progressive Insurance. And let me just say, you want to make the Ryder Cup team? This is how you do it. Here are the last 15 rounds for Tony Finau. 65, 67, 64, 68, 68, 67, 68, 69, 68, 66, 67, 69, 68, 69, 66.
Those are good.
That would do it. So we are delighted, as we said we would, to welcome him back to the show after he made it as the final captain's pick for the U.S. Ryder Cup team, Ryder Cup member Tony Finau. Tony, good morning. How are you?
Hey, man, quite the introduction. Thanks, guys. Good morning.
Thanks for being with us. Listen, all kidding aside, we joked that we did this for you, but you did it yourself. What does it mean for you to seal down that final pick on the Ryder Cup team?
Hey, it means everything to my career. It means a lot. Very satisfying feeling, and just the beginning. I honestly feel that way, and man, I'm just excited to add my skills and talent to a team that's already stacked and already an incredible team. So, I'm pretty proud and just proud to be able to represent the USA, a country that I'm proud to be from.
Well, take us all into this decision because we don't know about the process. We know Jim Furyk's going to make the captain's picks. Do you have any idea where you stood, you or your agent being told anything? You have to finish here. You have to do this well. What's kind of the process before you got that call?
Yeah, kind of funny. I never got the call. So, he gave me a courtesy call, Jim did, and told me, the 3 picks that he was going to make, the first 3 picks he was going to make. And basically told me, I need to keep, playing well and keep doing what I'm doing. So, obviously to me, I was just trying to keep my head down as best I can and just play good golf and just let my game do the talking. And, luckily for me, there was still 1 spot left after those 3 picks. and I felt like it was a good chance to make it, but you just never know. You just never know what they're thinking, and there's a lot that goes into that type of choice and the picks. But I felt like I was pretty high on their list, and if I could continue to play well and just try and win every tournament I play, especially here in the playoffs, then the rest will take care of itself, and it definitely has. So it's pretty satisfying feeling for me. And again, man, I'm excited to represent the USA in the Ryder Cup.
And the Golic and Wingo show. As Tony Finau joins us with us on the final pick, the captain's pick on the Ryder Cup team. You certainly, we listed your last 15 rounds. You certainly continued to play good golf. So how did you officially know? Did Jim call you? Did you get a text? How did that go down?
Yeah, so I finished my round yesterday. As soon as I finished, I got a text from him, and basically, hey, when you got a couple minutes in private, you're gonna give me a call. So, at that time, I knew, he was gonna give me some news. I was hoping it was good, but I try not to get my hopes up, throughout the process, and just keep my head down and play golf, and that's all I could do, and that's what I'm best at. So, I did a good job of that, and so, I gave him a shout yesterday after I played. And, he told me, hey, welcome to the Ryder Cup. So it was, I had goosebumps and just all that, and just what that entails for someone in my position is, it's an extreme honor to be part of the team. And now that it's official, I have my sights on, getting over to Paris and help bringing that cup back for our team.
Absolutely. And just real quickly, how much do you think that playing those 2 rounds with Jim Furyk at the PGA helped you, especially that round where you had 10 birdies?
Yeah, I think it helped for sure to be able to play, that well that second round and just show him, I can make birdies, and just to have him see my game up close, I think was something that's very important and important to me. So I was happy that when I saw the pairings, I was pleased just because I knew hopefully I was one of the guys that were being looked at, and he was going to be able to see my game up close. It's something that he's never really seen. Obviously you can see the scores. And things like that and things, but he's never seen me play in person. So I thought that was extremely important and, maybe definitely the tipping point to get me on the team.
Tony Finau joining us, member of the U.S. Ryder Cup team now. 3 top 10 finishes in the major this year. I'm asking for an honest moment here, Tony, because it was interesting when you say you got the test from Furyk and he wanted you to call him, because I could see you thinking it could go either way. Maybe he's giving you a courtesy call that he chose someone else or chose you. What did, in your mind, were you thinking it was going to be a bad call or a good call?
Yeah, no, honestly, I thought it was going to be a great call. I felt good about the way I've been playing, and either way, it would have been tough to not be on the team the way I've been playing. But I know that my career has been on the up and up, and I have a positive attitude, and I try to keep it that way. But I had a great feeling about the call, and it definitely worked out. When he announced, hey, welcome to the Ryder Cup, you're officially a member of the team. I still have goosebumps just from talking about it. So it's a time I'll always remember, and just a special moment for me. Whether I make 8 teams, 4 teams, whatever the case, making this first team is something that I always remember.
And it is different when we got, and again, for most of the people out there that are hacks like me, you sit there and look and you see you play 4-ball, you play alternate shot. How much different is the strategy when you do all that as opposed to stroke play on the tour?
Yeah, alternate shot is quite a bit different. Alternate shot is a whole different deal because you're hitting 1 or 2 shots a hole, so it's hard to get into a rhythm. And as a team, if you get off to a shaky start or your partner hits a bad shot, sometimes there can be some weird mojo. So alternate shot is definitely different. Best ball is pretty much golf, pretty much the golf we're used to. We play our own ball and we just try to make as many birdies as possible. And so those are two different games, honestly. Alternate shot is extremely tough, and it's extremely tough to get momentum in. But if you play well and you mesh well with your partner, an alternate shot, you can kind of run away with the match. So it's an intriguing format, and man, I'm excited to just get with the guys, kind of see what who fits with who, and just to be in that team room and the camaraderie that we'll have. I'm really stoked for.
Yeah, it certainly is, and I'm sure a lot of people would be like to pair with you, knowing that you can put up a birdie from almost anywhere. But you guys are going on the road, and listen, this has been a real problem for the U.S. team. They have not won a Ryder Cup on European soil since 1993. Tony Finau with us. On paper, this is one of the strongest Ryder Cups the U.S. has ever had, but how much do you guys realize it's going to be hard to go over there and get the W?
Yeah, we know it's going to be extremely tough. We've had incredible teams that have gone over there. And we get beat a lot and all the time. So something that the captain has already stressed to us in previous hopeful meetings, Ryder Cup hopeful meetings, and different things like that is his desire to go over there and bring the cup back. So I'm happy to be a part of the team that that's our mission. We want to go over there and accomplish that, and hopefully we can get it done. It's been way too long. 25 years is a long time to be waiting to bring the cup back. So it's in our hands now, and hopefully when it's all said and done at the end of September, we're bringing it back home.
Well, we are looking forward to watching you go out there and dominate, and we want the smack talk to begin now. Tony, we appreciate you being with us. Congratulations. We've been on this train since Augusta, and we really are excited to see you make the team. Best of luck to you, Tony. Thanks for being with us this morning, man.
Oh, of course. Really appreciate you guys. Power of positive thinking. You guys told me it was going to happen, and you guys are like, the prophecy came true. So thanks, guys.
We'll take all the credit because we are the pettiest show in America, but you actually did it. Tony Finau with us, the final member of the U.S. captain, U.S. Ryder Cup team, the captain's pick. Just a great guy.
Great guy.
Absolutely great.
Ewan Almonds versus where did I park my car? Right now you're wondering if your car was on B7 or G11, or maybe it rhymed with orange. And with all this honking, the car alarm trick's no use. But then, like an eagle spying its prey, you see the sensible sedan that you call lucky. Triumphantly, you pop your trunk just like you popped those almonds in your mouth. It's thanks to those 6 grams of energy-giving protein that you've mastered this maze. High five yourself. You've earned it. California Almonds. Own your everyday, every day.
All right, Golic and Wingo with you here, ESPN Radio and ESPN News. We're glad you're with us, presented by Progressive Insurance. If you weren't with us in the last break, we had our moment of silence for what today represents. It was 17 years ago that one of the worst and darkest days in our nation's history took place. The September 11th attacks in 2001 in New York City, Washington, D.C., and that plane that fell in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. And, Mike, you and I have very similar recollections of that day because of what was going on. We were both scheduled to be on the air that day, you on the radio with Mike, and I was scheduled to do the 6 o'clock Sports Center with Bob Lee. And a lot of us had a lot of question marks. I mean, for me, I mean, you had already been on the air when it happened.
That was, in the studio Greeny and I were in, we had a bunch of TVs. Obviously, the sound is down on it because you don't want sound up while we're on air. And we started seeing the reports, and you started seeing, one of the towers smoking, and you're kind of wondering what's going on. Then you see plane crash. You're wondering if it was, you had no idea you were associating that with the terrorist act.
Correct.
Until the next plane went into the other tower, and we were like, we were actually had Digger Phelps on at the time. We had Digger Phelps on at that time for a number of years after that, going forward. But it was on with Digger, and then we said goodbye to Digger, and then for the rest of that show, obviously it was 8:46 Eastern. We had another hour and 15 minutes to where we were like everybody else, but we just happened to be on, radio and TV of trying to figure out what the hell was going on. And then the attacks, and the other places as well. We were just human. We were just Americans at that point.
Right.
We weren't sports broadcasters. And so we finished that show, and we thought for sure that they would just cover us the next day on both radio and TV with ABC News and say, this is what people are going to want to be hearing. And I remember them sitting down with us and asking Greeny and I, they said, listen, we'd like you to go on as just two Americans, just two people, not sportscasters, just people, and just talk at it from that perspective, because that's what we all were. There were obviously the leaders who were dealing with all of it, but then there was all of us who were just like, what's going on?
Right.
What's happening with this? And so we went on for the next show. And I remember Greeny saying he has saved that show and will save it forever, of that show that we did. And then I will never forget the college, was sports going to go on? What was going to happen? They're going to take some time off. And the first college game that I did after that, they kind of made our groups to make it closer to where you could drive. They didn't want anybody flying for obvious reasons. And it was a game that Dave Barnett, Bill Curry, myself did in Syracuse. And I will never forget when that national anthem played. You never saw more people singing and being into it. They're playing God Bless America. There were tears streaming down our faces in the booth. It was one of the more emotional things I had ever been through. It was unreal, but to be on air when it was actually happening and then on the next day was something I obviously will never forget.
Yeah, that happened as you guys were on the air and you had to deal with it in real time. From my perspective that day, I was coming into work as this all was happening because Bob Lee and I were supposed to do the 6 o'clock Sports Center that day. And as I was pulling out of the driveway at the house, I remember Janice yelled out the window, a bomb just went off at the Pentagon. Of course, we knew at the time that was another plane that had hit the Pentagon. And I remember driving into work thinking, what the hell am I going to say today about sports that is of any significance to anyone? And we just sort of that morning, we're all sitting in the old newsroom, which is really right where we are right now, the way the building was configured. Where we are right now in this radio studio used to be the old newsroom. And we were trying to figure out, well, what are we going to do? And there was this really long discussion about should we just seed, because at that point we were on the TV side just seeding all our airtime.
Right, because now this is hours after.
Yeah, this is ABC News and everything was going on there. And we had a show coming on at 6 o'clock and the debate was, do we go on the air? Do we not go on the air? What do we do? And I'll never forget this. Bob Lee, in all his wisdom, said, look, this is what we do. This is our job. And whether it's of significance or insignificance from a historical perspective, I think we need to be on the air to explain from a sports perspective how this affected the world that we cover. And there was a lot of debate about that. And I'll be honest with you, I was like, we should just see this, and this is way more important, and let's do that. But in hindsight, we did go on the air. It was going to be just for an hour at 6 o'clock that night. And I think we ended up being on the air for 4.5 hours that night, going through everything. There was a hockey game or a preseason hockey game that was played.
Well, think of all the sports that were going on. And if you were a team that was going to be at home, that players were there, and how many came on and talked about seeing, live what was going on.
And then the debate became, as you said, well, what was going to happen? And initially, I believe the college football decided they were going to play all the games that weekend. And then the big thing was the NFL, because Pete Rozelle, the former NFL commissioner, said to his dying day, his biggest regret was that they played games the weekend after John F. Kennedy was assassinated. And so once the NFL, I can't remember if it was that Monday night or the next day. I apologize for not remembering specifically. When the NFL made the decision to not play games that weekend,
everybody kind of followed.
That pretty much was the deciding factor after that. It was an unusual day. It was a very somber day. It was a weird day of not knowing your place in the world. Because let's be honest, we do this as an entertainment value for people. Sports should not be your life. Sports should be your pleasant diversion from life. And there was no way of getting around and having a pleasant diversion.
No, there wasn't. We were just Americans then. We were humans. We were all dealing with it. No matter what your walk in life was, we all had to deal with that somehow, some way.
Yeah, and again, we made the decision to go on the air, and Bob Lee was a big part of that, and I think he helped us make the right call. So we are remembering that day forever. Coming up, we'll get to something that is a little diversion, how an 11-year-old is smarter than all of us.
Remember when you couldn't order a ride at the press of a button? Or get online without hearing this? Or get Domino's delivered to over 150,000 unexpected outdoor locations? Wait, what? Introducing Domino's Hotspots. You can finally get pizza delivered right to the beach, the quad, or the dog park. Not at home? Not a problem. Find a Domino's hotspot near you and get 2 medium 2-topping pizzas delivered for $5.99 each. 2-item minimum. Handmade pan pizzas will be extra asked for this limited time offer. Prices, participation, delivery area, and charges may vary. Restrictions apply. Visit Domino's.com for details on Domino's Hotspots.
You ever have one of those days?
One of what days?
Those days where you can't seem to get it together.
No, not really. I power through every day like a boss.
When the smallest task hits you like a 400-pound charging defensive lineman?
Yeah, no, I eat days like that for breakfast, but I also eat almonds.
Almonds?
Yeah, tiny little football-shaped power nuts with 6 grams of energy-giving protein.
Can I have a handful?
Fine. California almonds. Own your everyday, every day.
Are you hiring? With Indeed, you can post a job in minutes, set up screener questions, then zero in on your short list of qualified candidates using an online dashboard. Get started today at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast.
All right, people, listen up. We have a big favor to ask, and we promise it won't take up too much of your time. You know our show is supported by some fantastic sponsors, right? Well, we'd love to hear your feedback. Head to podcast.study and fill out a short, anonymous survey. That's it. We swear. Again, that's podcast.study.
Well, glad you're with us. Golic and Wingo, ESPN Radio and ESPN News. We are presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Mike Golic, Trey Wingo here with you. You can get in touch with us, 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed, at Golic and Wingo, or give us a phone call, 860-506-5505. We'll get to some of those phone calls a little bit later about what you thought of the Monday night games between the Jets and the Lions and the Rams and the Raiders. But, Mike, this is September 11th, the 17th anniversary of the attacks on the United States at the World Trade Centers in New York City, the Pentagon in Washington, D.C., and that one plane that was going for another target that was taken down by the passengers on that plane, United Flight 93 in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. And that really does frame everything today.
Yeah, it really does. And we're coming up, and we're going to have another moment of silence here. And I'll say again, when Greeny and I were on the air and the first plane hit the first tower at 8:46, and we were just trying to figure it all out. And then the radio and TV, the way it is, you do breaks and you come back at the top of the hour. And we came back at the top of that 9 o'clock hour, and not 3 minutes later is when the next plane went through the second tower, and it just added to more like, seriously, what in the hell is happening to our country right now? It was just an incredible time.
Yeah, you were on the air. I was on my way in that day to do the 6 o'clock Sports Center with Bob Lee, which we did do and ended up doing, I think, 4 hours that day. But there was a lot of discussion in the newsroom. And by the way, just for context, where we are right now in this radio studio was where the old newsroom was. We've reconnoitered and refigured things a lot over the few years, but we were in this same space, which is somewhat weird 17 years later, trying to figure out what to do. And again, we had a moment of silence earlier today at 8:46 when the first plane hit the first tower, and we're coming up on another moment of silence in 5 seconds right now when the second plane hit the second tower. And we continue now on Golic and Wingo, remembering that our country was forever changed that day. But the thing that I remember and think about, Mike, going forward is how much we have gone forward from that day.
Yeah. And listen, and we all have seen and or remember the scene from that day and the lives that were lost and lives that were changed forever. And one of the incredible sights is something we should always remember is the people running the wrong way. Yeah. The first responders running in to buildings and running into areas to try and save people as everybody else was trying to get out. So, I mean, there were so many things that came from that attack on U.S. soil, to the amount of people that were killed, to all the memories out there, to those that went in to try and help, to our leadership at that point and what went on going forward. It was confusing times, no doubt about it. Very, very tough I'm sure for a lot of people. I didn't lose anybody in my family or close in any of that, but so many people did. So listening that at that time, and then the years as they went on of people who did lose loved ones with those attacks, it's a horrible, horrible feeling to know what they went through.
It really is, and there are several people that we work with here that lost several. I was fortunate enough that I did not lose anybody of my immediate family or friends either, but I know several people that did, and every day when this day comes around, every year when this day comes around, I make sure I reach out to them and make sure that just, hey, this time does not heal all wounds in this situation. And, we don't do politics on the show. You know that. But I two things that I'll never remember from the aftermath of that day is then President George Bush standing there on the rubble of 9/11 with those first responders that you alluded to, saying, we stand with you and we will rebuild. And then, of course, the thing a little bit later, the chills that I think everybody got when he walked out to the mound at Yankee Stadium.
When he got it back into our world of sports again. And
Game one of the World Series, and he walked out there on that mound to throw that first pitch. And you could tell he had a bulletproof vest on, underneath it. And the great story, he was warming up underneath Yankee Stadium, and he was warming up, and Derek Jeter walks by and says, Mr. President, you going to throw from the mound, or are you going to throw from the front of the mound? And he President Bush says, I wasn't sure. And Derek Jeter said, sure enough, you better throw from the mound or they'll boo you.
Yeah.
Or they'll boo you. And you know what? He went out there and threw a strike.
Sure did.
Threw a strike over the plate.
Sure
so
did.
anyway, we remember that day for the significance of what it is, and we remember all those that lost friends and loved ones, and those people will never, ever be forgotten. But it is 17 years later, and we continue, and our nation has moved on, and we continue to move on, and let's do what we are paid to do, Mike, which is talk about sports and hopefully provide some levity and some brightness and some enjoyment in people's life. And let's start with what's trending, and we'll do what Justin Verlander did last night, which brought some joy and probably some tears to some people. In his first return to Detroit since being traded away, Justin Verlander received not one, not two, but 3 standing ovations in the Astros' 3-2 win over the Tigers.
Yeah, how nostalgic you think those fans, and again, this was in Detroit where there was a Monday Night Football game as well. 19,000 fans showed up to the ballpark to watch their Detroit Tigers play against Justin Verlander. How nostalgic you think he was on our team when we were good.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Remember the happy times?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Well, he ends up doing well as he always does. Struck out 10 over 7 innings, and for Houston, they have that 3-game lead on the A's right now, and the A's are 3 games behind the Yankees for the top wild card. Right now, it's going to be the Yankees and the A's. It looks like playing in that wild card game. If it holds how it is, it's just a matter of where that game will be played right now. Right now, it'd be in New York.
Yeah, the Astros now have a 3-game lead over the A's in the West, and the Yankees have a 3-game lead over the A's for the top wild card spot. So again, right now it looks like if you used Jim Furyk, the U.S. Ryder Cup captain's term, trending, it's trending still that the Yankees would have the wild card home field advantage. But again, 3 games, not a lot as we go into the stretch of the Major League Baseball regular season. Speaking about wild card, you can forget about that. The Brewers have their sights set on something else, the NL Central title, as the Brewers beat the Chicago Cubs, and they're now just within 1, Mike, of the NL Central lead.
Yeah, they won for the 7th time in 8 games. Lorenzo Cain had 4 hits in this one, 1 game back. They only have 2 more games against one another than the rest of the season. The games, I think there's in the teens left to play. They don't face one another, so we'll have to. It plays out by scoreboard watching is what happens. You always love to control it yourself, but listen, I guess we'd have been lucky to see them have the last series like the Yankees and the Red Sox have the last 2 games, but it's not going to mean anything.
If it means something, things have really gone south in Boston.
South in Boston. That's exactly right. So again, 2 more times for the Cubs in Milwaukee to play one another, to have actual impact on the standings against one another right now, and then they just have to wait and see what happens with each other as they finish the season.
And speaking of the wild card, a wild card for the Yankees and their postseason success could be whether or not Aaron Judge is out there. Remember when he fractured that bone in his wrist? They said 3 weeks.
Yep.
Well, it's been about double that, and he's still not ready to roll. About 5 hours before Monday night series opener at Target Field between the Yankees and the Minnesota Twins, which the Yankees did win, Judge was in the outdoor cage taking live batting practice. Mike, that's the first time he's faced live pitching since that chip fracture on July 26th.
Again, it's a process of, and there's not a lot you can do. When you chip a bone, they just have to wait. Yeah. Different injuries on athletes for different body parts depending on the sport they play. But you're talking about a bone, all you can do is wait. If it's bad enough where you have to go in and put plates and screws and like that to help. But other than that, if it's just a chip, you're waiting for it to heal. That's all you can do is wait. You still got some pain going on that. You still have obviously a little bit of time, and we all believe it seems locked into that wild card game. So it should all be about being ready. If nothing else, you'd love to get some games before that, no doubt about it. You don't just want to come back in that game, but that's certainly the goal.
Yeah, we're not saying that the rest of the season is preseason status or spring ball, but know what the bigger picture is. Make sure that whatever Aaron Judge is, the best of that will be available when that wild card game rolls around. We think at this point at Yankee Stadium. So they're trusting that process, and Cleveland fans continue to trust their process. And it came so close.
Oh, it did.
On Sunday to ending that losing streak. Well, they didn't lose, but they also did not win in the 21-21 tie. And, I kind of think we might have to blame our next guest for them not winning this game.
That's a little harsh for a guy who just became a dad again.
It is, and I understand all of that. But, our friend Joe Thomas, who in 5 years is walking into the Hall of Fame, put a little video of that Bud Light cooler that remains locked in Cleveland until they get that first win. And late in that game, he was excited and showing the thing, and then it ends up a tie. So we're delighted for a lot of reasons to welcome in Joe Thomas, 10-time Pro Bowler. Is going to be with us every week. And by the way, the gift he gave us outside, we'll get into in a minute, is just fantastic. But, Joe, I got to ask, do you in any way regret putting the picture of that Bud Light cooler locked in light of what happened Sunday in Cleveland?
Oh, absolutely not. I think that was an important message to send to the team that, hey, baby, we're only a few seconds away from these Bud Lights, so don't screw it up. And unfortunately, they did. But I'm still feeling good because, Wingo, you were wrong at the beginning. They actually did break their losing streak. They did not lose on Sunday, which is the first time since 2004 that they didn't lose the opener. And, of course, in a couple years since they did not lose a game.
Yeah, I did. You're right. I did put it on Twitter. The Browns breaking their losing streak by not winning is the most Browns thing ever. But, listen, we all believe they're going to win multiple games, Joe. I want everyone to know that. Golic Jr. and I are all 100% on the idea that you guys are going to win multiple games.
Good. I totally agree. I think the Browns are going to have a much better season than people expect.
So as we finished week 1 in the NFL, and so it's an overreaction. Monday was yesterday, and 2 games last night to finish out week 1. How did you as a player, between yourself personally and then in the locker room with your teammates, what were your thought processes after week 1? I don't imagine there was too much overreaction there.
Well, that was one of the difficult things that rookies have to learn is that especially early on in the season, the first few games, whatever happens, there's an enormous overreaction. So if you win the game, everyone's talking about, oh, we're going to the Super Bowl, and everyone already making playoff plans. But then when you lose, it's like, oh, time to fire the coach. We need a new quarterback. We need a coordinator. So it's really important that your process is always the same on Mondays. You come in, you review the film, and you go by what the film says, not by what the scoreboard says, because in the NFL, a game is decided by a couple plays usually. And if those 2 plays happen to be good plays for you, you're going to feel way too good about the rest of the game. And if those couple plays were bad, including like maybe a block kick or something like that, you're going to feel way too bad about the plays that happened before, and you're going to be too critical, and you're going to lose some of the learning that has to happen on a Monday after a game.
Joe Thomas with us this morning, and we cannot go any farther talking to Joe without acknowledging what he did. Joe sent us here at the show staff just a whole bucket full, tons of food from Mission Barbecue, and we've been snacking on it all this morning, and it's delightful, but Mike, this is killing you.
Yeah, it is. I'll get into it. I can't eat any of it this morning. I'm going to put some aside and save it to you, Joe, but that was very nice of you to do. What is there a reason why you're just trying to suck up to us or what? What's going on?
Well, I'm trying to torture you, Golic, because I know you can't have any right now. So that was the main point. But no, at Mission Barbecue, we're the premier barbecue restaurant in America, as you probably know.
Yes.
But our mission is to serve, right? We want to always say thank you to the fire, police, and first responders in our community. And being that it's September 11th, it's a very special day to remember our heroes. And so we thought it would be right to give my good friends Golic and Wingo a little bit of taste of what freedom tastes like.
And let me tell you what, the barbecue, phenomenal, but I do understand you have your own beer and you have our address. So what do you think?
That's next week. You're going to spoil the surprise, Golic.
That's what he does. He just ruins it for everybody, just so you know, Joe. All right, the Steelers sort of spoiled the surprise with blocking that kick where we all thought Cleveland was going to win that game. T.J. Watt had an unbelievable game, 4 sacks in that game for the Steelers, as well as the block kick. But there are a couple of players that I thought absolutely balled out for the Cleveland Browns, and that was Denzel Ward, who I think became the first top 10 pick in the common draft era, Joe, to have 2 interceptions in his first game. And my God, Myles Garrett is Thor's hammer. I mean, he is just unbelievable. As a former left tackle, how much do you appreciate, A, not playing against him now, and B, the special skills he brings to the defensive line of the Cleveland Browns?
Well, after you draft a guy number 1 overall, you still really don't know what he's got until you see him in practice. And so practicing against him last year, it didn't take too long to realize how good he was going to be. And at that moment last year, I was really happy that I was practicing against him because that meant I didn't have to play against him on Sundays. But when I watch him out there this year, I feel really bad for the guys that go against him because he doesn't really have any weaknesses. And he's so strong, but he bends so well and he's so quick that there's really nothing he can't do well. And so whatever you have as a tackle, you're probably going to have a little bit of a weakness somewhere, and he's going to be able to exploit it. So if he's able to remain healthy this year, he's going to be extremely dangerous.
Joe Thomas joining us, 10-time Pro Bowl tackle, 7-time first-team All-Pro as well, will be joining us every week. So there's always week one overreaction. Now that you're an analyst and not playing anymore, you get to overreact to things. So what did you see in week one that surprised you good or surprised you bad?
Well, both of them happened in the same game, actually. On my Tomahawk podcast last week, I proclaimed that the Saints were going to win the Super Bowl and Tampa Bay Buccaneers were going to have the worst record in the league.
Wow.
So clearly I was both surprised good and bad in one game.
Which one surprised you more than what one team did do or what one team didn't do?
Honestly, we've seen Ryan Fitzmagic do what he did before, so that wasn't entirely out of nowhere, but I think everyone expected the Saints defense to be much, much better. And they made big strides last year after several years of being really bad. And so for them to be able to give up the points that they did, that was just astounding. And I think they almost have to go back to the drawing board after a disastrous performance like that.
You know, a lot of times I think sometimes fans look at players like robots. They go out and they play. That's what their job to do. They get ready to play and they go play. But there's emotion out there as well. Talk about the emotion, especially from the O-line to a quarterback. When you see in the second half a guy like Aaron Rodgers who gets carted off the field in the first half, come running back on the field in the second half to help your team.
Well, as an old lineman, your job is to protect the quarterback first and foremost. I mean, that's how you have a job in the NFL, right? If you can't run block, you can still play in the NFL if you can keep your quarterback upright. And so when you have a guy like that go down, and especially a guy like Aaron Rodgers, who you know your entire season, everybody's livelihood on that Green Bay Packers roster and staff counts on number 12 being upright and throwing touchdowns all year. So when he goes down and you realize that's because you are giving up hits on him, that's the worst feeling in pro football. So for him to come back out of the locker room after everyone kind of expected, man, it might be so bad he might go on IR all year. And for him to come out of the locker room like that, that gives an enormous jolt in the arm of energy to that entire team that says, all right, we got to pick this thing up, and we have a chance because 12 is back there.
Certainly does give a lot of people energy, and something that can deflate a lot of energy, Joe, from a team or a locker room is letting one of your best players go and seeing them shine on the stage and then not being able to duplicate in your first game what he brought to the table. And of course, I'm talking about Khalil Mack, who had an unbelievable game against the Green Bay Packers, and then the Raiders outscored 23-0 in the second half in John Gruden's return in the black hole as they lose to the Rams 33-13. Listen, when you let a guy go, and that's what they decided to move on from him. How quickly can things turn inside a locker room when you say, hey, that guy can still play and he should have been here with us?
Well, there was definitely a lot of question marks in the locker room. There was a lot of guys scratching their heads and looking at each other going, what does the organization think about this team right now? Because you don't give up the premier pass rusher in the game in his prime in a season that you think you're going to win the Super Bowl. So they got to be looking at each other going, are these guys that are running the show waiting until we move to Las Vegas to really try to put a team together? Do they not think we're good enough to win right now? Why are they saving draft picks for next year's team and the year after that? And so that's a really tough thing for a coach to walk into that locker room and say, hey, we got rid of our best player because, well, here's the reason, and then have no good reasons to be able to back it up.
Future Hall of Famer Joe Thomas joining us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, as he will every week. Situation in Pittsburgh. We saw James Conner score. The offensive line lose their collective minds in celebration. We've seen Instagram and Twitter back and forth after that game between the O-line and Le'Veon Bell. Can Le'Veon Bell go back in that locker room?
Well, I think he could, but unfortunately, I think it's going to get more ugly before it gets better because Le'Veon Bell does not look like he's going to show up anytime soon, but he will have to show up at some point this year because he needs to get that credited season in order to be a free agent next year. So I fully expect the way that this is going to go is right about, 6 games left in the season, Le'Veon Bell is going to show up and he's going to be given half effort because he doesn't want to get hurt at that point, and he's just showing up because he has to. It's almost like the Marshawn Lynch, I'm only here because I have to be. That's what Le'Veon Bell is going to be, and it's going to be so ugly, and there's going to be so much drama in that locker room because who knows, Le'Veon Bell might get a hangnail or a tweaked ankle in practice and might be sitting out in the middle of a playoff run, and it's just going to get even more ugly.
That would get very, very ugly. Joe Thomas joining us again. Thank you for the Mission Barbecue. I will enjoy it tomorrow, no doubt about that. But a bigger congratulations, and the biggest thing to happen in your life, certainly in a bit, is you and your wife, or your wife, really. Your wife, Annie, did the work. You guys had a little baby girl, Reese. So just recently, how are wife and baby doing?
Everybody is doing great. We had the baby Friday night, and everybody's at home. I wish we could say we were all sleeping, but we are all doing very well.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah,
that won't happen for a while, but trust me, the end result is always worth it, as you well know. Joe, thanks for being with us this morning. And again, thanks for the barbecue, which is absolutely torturing Golic in the moment. And we'll be expecting the beer. So we appreciate talking to you, buddy.
Yes, 73 beer from Great Lakes Brewing next week, guys. Thank you very much.
When it comes to hiring, you don't have time to waste. You need help getting to your short list of qualified candidates fast. That's why you need Indeed.com. Post a job in minutes, set up screener questions, then zero in on qualified candidates using an intuitive online dashboard. And when you need to hire fast, accelerate your results with sponsored jobs. New users can try for free at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms, conditions, and quality standards apply.
Remember when you couldn't order a ride at the press of a button? Or get online without hearing this? Or get Domino's delivered to over 150,000 unexpected outdoor locations? Wait, what? Introducing Domino's Hotspots. You can finally get pizza delivered right to the beach, the quad, or the dog park. Not at home? Not a problem. Find a Domino's hotspot near you and get 2 medium 2-topping pizzas delivered for $5.99 each. 2-item minimum. Handmade pan pizzas will be extra asked for this limited time offer. Prices, participation, delivery area, and charges may vary. Restrictions apply. Visit Domino's.com for details on Domino's Hotspots.
All right, Tuesday morning. Glad you're with us. Golic and Wingo, ESPN Radio, ESPN News. We are presented by Progressive Insurance. And Mike, the double dip of the Monday Night Football game really gave us a lot to talk about. And we've talked a lot about Sam Darnold and the way the Jets looked. I don't think we've talked enough about what the Rams did and what they were able to do against the Raiders. Look, let's be honest. It was a fever pitch last night.
Yeah, it was. And I think one of the reasons for that is we didn't expect this out of the Jets.
No, we didn't.
To put up 48 and score every way possible that you can score and do what they did after your first-round quarterback, rookie starter, throws a pick-6 in his first pass. What they did after that, I mean, Jet fans, holy smokes, how happy they have to be. And for the Rams, let's be honest, a lot of us expected it. A lot of us expect the Rams to win the division and to be one of the top teams in the NFC, and even though they were going to Oakland, we feel Oakland is down this year. So I think that's one of the reasons is we were a bit surprised by what the Jets did. And I got to believe even Jet fans were a bit surprised on what their team did.
Right. The expectations are completely different, though, for the Rams. They were all in this offseason, and it showed as they, again, beat the Raiders by 20, outscoring them 23-0 after the half. And you really had the entire arsenal on display here. Jared Goff was very effective, 18 of 33, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. He had a QBR of 74, which is pretty good out of 100, a quarterback rating of 90, passer rating, of 97.2. Their main weapon was Todd Gurley.
Right.
20 carries, 108 yards, and 5.4 yards per carry. But one of their new additions turned out to be exactly what they wanted. They made the trade for Brandon Cooks, get him over from New England, and he delivered. He didn't have a touchdown, but he had 5 catches for 87 yards, Mike, over 17 yards per catch. That's exactly why they brought him in.
Oh, that's exactly right. I mean, you look at from a stat, and again, everything isn't about stats, but what they did, you have your receiver averaging over 17 yards a catch. You have your running attack averaging about 5.5 yards per carry. You have a quarterback who is pretty efficient, even though the completion percentage wasn't the greatest in the world, but no turnovers. That's such a key thing. So all phases are working for you offensively, from passing to running the ball to protection of the quarterback. Goff was sacked just one time in this game. One of the things John Gruden, I thought was interesting, brought up in his post-game presser, we need to get more pressure on the quarterback.
Really? How you could have done that?
Really, do you? But yeah, they looked efficient. They looked like what we thought they would look like, because of all they did in the offseason and how they were loading up for this year.
And by the way, count Booger McFarland among those impressed with what the Rams are and what he thinks they can be.
I think the Rams are one of the three teams that could be the most talented. When you talk about the Vikings, the Eagles, and the Rams, I think those are the three most talented teams in football. And I think their talent showed. They weren't necessarily as sharp as you would expect them to be early in the season, but I think the talent goes on. And in the end of this season, the most talented teams are going to rise to the top, injuries withstanding, and the Rams are going to be right there, especially with all their talent. They won this game, and how many times did you call Aaron Donald's name tonight? Not many, and that's scary for the rest of the league.
You know, and you look at this team, and it's really the second half. As you mentioned, this is a team that probably played their starters the least amount.
They hardly played,
in the preseason. So it was a little sluggish early on, but the second half, you know, they hit it in stride. So it didn't take them long to do that. One thing I will note in this game, just because I love every play means something, Marshawn Lynch's 10-yard run. If you haven't seen it,
it's amazing.
You need to watch it. It is classic Marshawn Lynch. From the 10-yard line, he takes kind of like a draw, and he gets hit, really kind of stopped at about the 4-yard line. And between him and his offensive line and others continuing to block, it looks like, you know, a rugby, you know, pile there. And the pile just moves 3 to 4 yards into the end zone. That was a true Marshawn Lynch type of a touchdown run, one of the few bright spots for the Raiders. What else I thought was interesting is you find out that the Rams tried to trade for Khalil Mack.
Yeah.
The Raiders were going to trade him. They trade him, obviously, to the Bears, and we saw what he did in Game 1. Even though they lost, he was incredible in the amount of plays he played. The Rams offered a first and a third, and they were only going to have him for this year, talking about being all in this year for it. And then after this year, they were going to trade him and try and recoup what they had to give up for him. But that was their plan. I mean, wow, what they've loaded up on this year, and they almost added Khalil Mack to that.
And you're saying, why would you do that? Because they can, okay? Much like Carson Wentz in Philadelphia, this is year 3 of a 5-year window to surround Jared Goff with the best team available. Now, why do you say this 5-year window? Because that's when you can get your quarterback on the cheap, okay? This is year 3 for both Goff and Wentz. Obviously, it worked out in a bizarre way in Philadelphia because they won the Super Bowl even though Wentz got hurt. But they don't have to pay him until after the 2018, 19, and 2020 season. Okay, then 2021, time to open up the checkbook because you got to pay your quarterback your franchise money. You get him on that 4-year contract, and you have the 5th-year option as a first-round pick where you can get him at a substantially lower than market deal if he's playing as well as you think he is playing as a top pick in the draft. So that's why they went out and got Brandon Cooks. That's why they went out and signed Ndamukong Suh. And that's why they tried to make the trade for Khalil Mack, because you can load up talent around the quarterback without having to have a significant portion of his salary cap invested in the quarterback.
Yeah, and that's what they were trying to do, go in for this year and then trade Mack, because who knows if Ndamukong Suh will be there. He's on a 1-year, $14 million deal. So we'll see going into next year, but you got to love what they're doing because they can. And as you mentioned, the most important reason, because of the quarterback before he gets paid, you make hay while you can, and they have a good shot at it. I know they're one of the favorites out there. It would be, quite honestly, it would be a disappointment, I think, for a lot of people if you don't see this team make a run. They always say just because you accumulate talent doesn't mean you're going to win.
Right.
Remember, Washington signed Pro Bowler after Pro Bowler, and none of those guys ever made a Pro Bowl once they got to Washington. They spent a lot of money, and they didn't get the production. No doubt the Rams are spending a lot of money here as well. Let's see if they can, how quickly this team can get cohesive, play together, get that chemistry, and what they can do.
And we always talk about the offense because, let's be honest, everything in the NFL is geared toward the offense. But if the Rams are going to be what they are, the secret sauce is going to be on that defensive side.
Is.
Wade Phillips, look, you can say what you want about him as a head coach. He is one of the best defensive coordinators that this league has ever seen. You give that guy, Ndamukong Suh, Aaron Donald, Marcus Peters.
Well, that's the thing. The secondary as well. I mean, this isn't just pass rushing.
No, they are loaded from top to bottom. And if those guys stay healthy, look out, because that group is going to be as special as anybody else. And we can get into the other side of it and what it means for the Raiders in just a little bit. But I'm telling you, Mike, if things don't go well in the month of September, it's going to be a very interesting situation this season in Oakland.
Yeah, listen, it definitely is. I think just for the fact of players saying, what do I have to do to get paid?
Yeah.
Because they had the best player maybe in the league at what he does not get paid. And so I'm sure a lot of them are, wait a minute, so if I'm doing well and I want some big money, what's going to happen here? Because they don't seem to be paying, even though that was an incredible amount for Khalil Mack that he wanted to be paid. But already you went into the season with eyebrows raised of, why in the hell are we letting this guy go when he's doing exactly what you want him to do? What does that mean for the rest of us?
A potential Hall of Famer in his prime. Those are the players you build around. Those are not the players you let go.
It's a busy time in the NFL, especially for the fans. There's couches to fluff, bandwagon jerseys to buy, and most importantly, getting the perfect snack lineup ready. If you're going to watch football as hard as it deserves to be watched, you're going to need California almonds. With 6 grams of energy-giving protein, you'll have the stamina you need for the anxious sweats, happy jumps, and of course, the angry convulsing. Plus, they're portable, in case you need some fresh air and a screaming break. Visit almonds.com and own every day of the season with California almonds.
Hey, who won the weekend? Obviously, Aaron Rodgers. Holy. You went from giving up on the Packers season with that knee injury to all of a sudden, we're back, baby.
Who won the weekend?
Golic and Wingo, presented by 1-800-Flowers.com. Nothing makes up for your football obsession like a fresh and beautiful bouquet from 1-800-Flowers.com. To order a dozen multicolored roses plus an extra bouquet and a vase for just $29.99. Go to 1-800-Flowers.com, click the radio icon, enter the code WINGO. So you just heard that voicemail about how great Aaron Rodgers was.
Right.
Listen to this tweet from Rachel in Detroit.
All
you
right,
want to
Rachel
talk about
Detroit.
Rachel in Detroit?
Yes.
Detroit fan, same division, obviously.
Lions, yeah.
Do you want to, when you just can't get past someone's great because they're in your division or you just don't like them?
Yeah.
This is what Rachel said. The NFL kills me overhyping Aaron Rodgers. It was nothing. There was nothing special about what Aaron Rodgers did last night. The Bears defense stopped playing along with the holding the refs allowed Green Bay's offensive line to get away with. Facts.
Rachel.
Rachel. I don't even know what to, and I get, listen, your fandom gets in the way of reality a lot of times, and I'm going to give Rachel the benefit of the doubt on that because Rachel, I'm going to disagree with you a little bit.
Just a little?
On everything basically you said there. But I understand your fandom may be getting in the way of that.
Look,
but holy smokes,
come
on.
We just had Jeff Saturday in here. And let's be clear, the 2 quarterbacks for most of his career that Jeff Saturday took snaps from or gave snaps to in his career, Peyton Manning and Aaron Rodgers.
About that.
So I'm going to say, Rachel, just for you, he may have a better working of knowledge of what defines greatness at the position, and he gushes over Aaron Rodgers. So don't take our word for it. Take the word for it for the guy who gave the ball to both Peyton and Aaron Rodgers. He knows what he's talking about and just how great Aaron Rodgers is.
Without a doubt. Without question. So,
Rachel, we love you. We appreciate your fandom.
Yes, we do.
We appreciate and celebrate your fandom, but understand the blinders that comes with.
And that makes me understand fandom even more.
Yes.
When you can make comments like that.
And remember, fan is short for fanatic.
Yes, it is.
Okay, we are presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, but it's time for Who Won the Weekend. Here are your nominees. Naomi Osaka, who, yes, won the Women's U.S. Open title despite all the controversy surrounding Serena Williams. Novak Djokovic, who steamrolled Delpo in straight sets to win his 14th Grand Slam title, 3rd most all-time. Aaron Rodgers, sorry, Rachel in Detroit, with the 3 touchdowns in the 4th quarter. Tyreek Hill, who, by the way, his first 2 touches were touchdowns on Sunday, and I think we looked it up, scored 4,658 fantasy points in ESPN regular scoring. Ryan Fitzpatrick, 5 total touchdowns, 4 throwing, 1 rushing, 417 passing yards in the Bucs' big win over the Saints in New Orleans. Herman Edwards guided ASU to an upset over 15th-ranked Michigan State. Kentucky beating Florida for the first time since 1986. Clemson, because they hung on and found a way to get a tough road win at College Station. And peace between Drake and Meek Mill because they quelled their beef.
Didn't Drake bring Meek Mill up on stage, I believe?
Yes, at a show in Boston.
Doesn't Drake have? I love how Drake too. Doesn't he put the basket, a hoop, like in it on his stage, and lets a fan come up and shoot like what would be equivalent to a half quarter? That's pretty cool.
Next person to do it.
Yeah, pretty cool thing. I do like that. But yeah, the beef's over there, so that's all good.
Okay, and so who do you like? Who won the weekend?
And there's still a beef between Cardi B, who threw a shoe at Nicki Minaj. I mean, so that's trouble.
Ultimate sign of disrespect in some countries when you throw a shoe. That is true.
Mine is not going to be the NFL, not going to be in the entertainment industry either. Mine is between Naomi Osaka, who won the U.S. Open, in Kentucky for breaking that 31 game streak, and they did it in the swamp. I really, really want to lean toward them and give them this, but it is tough for me not to go for Naomi Osaka. And what she did, she was the better player, and all the controversy that went on with Serena Williams, where she played better than Serena. It was difficult for her in the ceremony afterward as well. It's her first first Grand Slam won, and to do it against her idol. Naomi Osaka, to me, won the weekend. I thought it was just fantastic the way she played and then how she dealt with that entire situation.
It is hard for me to disagree with you there because all the things that surrounded her in this, it kind of reminded me of when Kanye West stole the Grammy stage and Taylor Swift would just sit there like, what am I supposed to do?
Happened? Yeah.
How is this happening to me? Yeah. I thought the VMAs, that's what it was, VMAs, sorry. So I sort of felt like that, but I thought the way she handled the whole thing, absolutely true. I cannot disagree with you.
But you're going to.
I'm not disagreeing.
I know, you're just going another way.
I'm going with my guy because you know what?
Leave it on the grass, man. Leave it on the grass.
A lot of people scoffed when Herm Edwards went back into college coaching for the first time in decades. Never been a head coach in college before. Oh, can he relate to the players? Please. The one thing Herm can do is relate to people. Down 13-0 in that game, comes back with a huge statement win early in his Arizona State coaching career. 16-13, wins as time expires with a field goal. By the way, basically channeling his own words.
You play to win the game.
And because of that, Arizona State is ranked 23rd in one poll, 25th in another. My guy, Herman Edwards, to me, won the week.
Good for him. This week they play San Diego State, which did a good job stopping the run of Stanford a couple of weeks ago. And then they're at number 10, Washington. Then
it gets difficult.
Yes, it does. This next week will be a tough one for them, too, at San Diego State.
Absolutely. Okay, tomorrow we'll have a reaction to the double dip of the Monday Night Football games, and we'll also speak with Paul Finebaum and Joe Thomas, who may have cursed the Browns, by the way. Hey, we can't play golf today, but I'm still going to try and go.
Leave it on the grass, man. Leave it on the grass.
We'll see you tomorrow.
Unbelievable.
Remember when you couldn't order a ride at the press of a button? Or get online without hearing this? Or get Domino's delivered to over 150,000 unexpected outdoor locations? Wait, what? Introducing Domino's Hotspots. You can finally get pizza delivered right to the beach.